Hey guys, what up? It's Jack and welcome back to another video. So today we're going to be discussing the death of the casual multiplayer shooter, right? And the reason we're discussing this is because, well, over the course of the last few years, etc., it's very, like, on social media, whether it's YouTube, whether it's Twitter, or whatever else, right? Everybody is pointing their finger in the similar direction, right? And it makes a lot of sense, right? Everybody's pointing their finger at EOMM, SBMM, and all that kind of stuff being like the killer of casual multiplayer shooters. And I'm here to tell you that even though it kind of plays a role, I'm telling you that it is actually a catalyst, but not the cause. So in other words, what I'm trying to tell you is that SBMM forward slash EOMM is actually a symptom, but it's not the cause. It's not the reason as to why casual multiplayer shooters are dying. And to give you a little bit further insight into which we could all relate to, because this has happened more recently, why do you think it's taken Call of Duty so long to even talk about or address SBMM? And on top of that, they're talking about SBMM, not EOMM, right? And on top of that, even if you look at the last couple of articles that they made, one of them being more recent, and yes, I am aware of it, but there's really no reason to talk about it because at the end of the day, it's a lot of it, let's just say, it's a whole bunch of BS. We know a lot of us that have been playing the series for a long time or have been watching after playing the series for a long time kind of know the truth. And, Dr. Manhattan himself from Watchmen once said that there's two kinds of puppets. You know, there's the puppets and then there's the puppets that can see the strings, right? So you're either one of the two, okay, at this point. And right now, one of the reasons why it's being discussed is because, not because Sledgehammer is like a good to do type of developer. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not shitting on Sledgehammer. I think Sledgehammer over the last few years has actually been the most community friendly of the three developers, to be honest with you. Actually, especially ever since World War II, especially ever since the overhaul after Condrey and Schofield were gone, like, Sledgehammer Games has absolutely done the best with what they got in terms of trying to make the community happy, and it's been more evident with their games as opposed to what Treyarch has done and what Infinity Ward has done over time, right? So props to them, but it's not because of them. I mean, remember, everything has to go through Activision before it's released, and at the same time, why did it take so long? And I'll tell you why it took so long. It took so long for them to even address this and to even talk about it, even though they're kind of doing it their own way and kind of BSing us, right? It took them long because our voices kept getting louder and louder and louder, and the accumulation of the amount of voices has gotten larger and larger and larger over the last 6 years. Because remember, this became a really big topic of discussion starting in Modern Warfare 2019. There were a couple of exceptions here and there with Advanced Warfare and, of course, the beginning of Call of Duty World War II or whatnot. But in Modern Warfare 2019 and beyond, it's when it really, like, became not just super noticeable, but obviously other things like EOMM started becoming noticeable, especially after the patent was found. Now, with that being said, that is why, because there are more and more people aware of it. So what does that tell you right there, right? If there are more and more people aware of it, and more people are talking about it, and more people are spreading the word, that means that there's been a sort of growth in the player community that has noticed such a thing. And who notices such a thing the most? The good players. Now, I'm not saying bad players are not affected by EOMM. I'm not saying that at all. As a matter of fact, I'm saying they are affected just as bad as we are. They're just affected in a slightly different way. And what I mean by that is, they'll never reap the rewards of what it's like to reap the rewards of being a good player and to do very well in the lobby and to enjoy it to its fullest capacity, right? And in some ways, it even it almost blocks them from being a good player. But anyway, so there's a lot of similarities between the good and the bad player in terms of what they go through. However, I will say that obviously the good player obviously gets the short end. Like, basically, the good player gets punished even more than the bad player. But anyway, now, what is the cause of all this, right? What is the cause of multiplayer, casual multiplayer shooters dying? And why am I saying it's not EOMM? Now, or SBMM/EOMM, right? Now, again, like I said, it's a symptom, but the cause, and again, one of the reasons why I named the more recent SBMM blogs that Activision has been putting out recently after all these years, the reason why I said that is because it is a form of proof, okay? And what is this form of proof? Proof of what exactly am I talking about? Well, I'm going to take you back to 10 to 15 years ago, give or take, right? Did you guys know that there was once a time in gaming to where everybody was playing on a regular default controller that came with the console, a regular HD TV, headsets weren't as common as they are today, you know, SCUF controllers weren't as common and stuff like that, et cetera, right? Everybody pretty much played with the same equipment, so to speak, right? Even couch co-op was a thing back in the day, but obviously over time that started to change, and it became a big deal even before things like making content on YouTube, Elgato capture devices, the whole PC setup and stuff like that you see today, players playing on monitors, more and more people creating content and all that kind of stuff, right? It was actually apparent before, you know, being a content creator was a lot more accepted and a lot more common than it was back then, right? Now, to give you some proof about this, before content, right? Now, granted, content and the pro scene and YouTube and streaming and all that kind of stuff is part of the cause. Before that, you had a lot of players. Like if you went into back into the Black Ops 1 combat record, you would see a lot of players, like a significant number of players, and I mean significant number of players, that their most used weapon would either be the FAMAS or the AK-74U, right? Now there's a reason for that. So, and I guess if you think about it, really, it just really starts to make sense, because everybody wanted to win. Everybody wanted to get the, you know, the kills as best as possible with the best weapon and stuff like that. So whether you were watching YouTube or pros or whatever or not, the meta was something that was very important, and a lot of people were really trying hard even back then, even though they weren't as good as they are today. They were trying really hard to basically get those kills and all that kind of stuff. And again, obviously this was more amplified in good players. You know, good players would always use the meta. But it only became a matter of time before bad players started to notice, right? Because they are human after all. And again, when you add in the YouTube scene, when you add in the competitive scene, right? When that starts to play a role, and when that gets added into the mix, now all of a sudden, a lot of bad players like myself, like where I used to be a really bad player, I had access to how to get better by watching other people's gameplay or listening to what they had to say, depending on whatever the video was. And then obviously pub stomping channels became very popular. Now, why do you think that is? And that's because everybody wanted to get better, right? And now they had access as to how to get better, because they were looking at all these other people's gameplays, they were watching their commentaries, and sometimes some channels would be dedicated to that. It's like, here, you know, improve your gameplay, such and such. People understood more and more as to how guns worked, thanks to guys like Xbox Ahoy, Drifter. Later on, it became Exclusive A's, but back in the day, even Team Martin did it. So thanks to guys like that, people now understand what the best game is, or excuse me, what the best guns are and stuff like that, and how it works, like how the damage output works, the recoil, et cetera, right? And they even went as far as, you know, perks and stuff like that, strategies, spawn prediction, stuff like that. Now, obviously, back in the day, those videos were a lot more popular, right? And on top of that, right now, we've got more and more people than ever doing content creation. Like, if you look at me, I didn't even consider content creation up until I got good at the game. Once I got good at the game, I was inspired by another content creator, and I'm like, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to start doing it too. And the next thing you know, I got myself an Elgato capture device. I used a laptop that shouldn't have even worked with a game capture device because it was just too weak or whatnot. But hey, it worked regardless. I was still able to record footage. I bought myself a blue snowball microphone back then, and I learned very simple basic editing techniques, and lo and behold, I started putting together my first few videos, and the first few videos I ever made were long before I even did YouTube, because I just wanted to see if I could even produce anything. And lo and behold, I found out I did. And I'm like, yeah, I could do this whole YouTube thing if I wanted to. And I ended up doing it, you know, obviously just for fun. It's always been just for fun, first and foremost. So, and again, over the course of time and people naturally getting better at the game, plus you throw things in like the competitive scene, the influence from there, the YouTubers, the influence from there, and all that into the mix. And of course, with the natural progression of time, it ended up having a domino effect, which actually amplified everything. Like, the Call of Duty community evolved really quick, and the gaming community evolved really quick ever since, especially when content creation and YouTube and everything else got thrown into the mix. Because now it was no longer as much of a mystery anymore. The shroud was removed, so to speak, and people saw that if you could actually be good at the game by basically following a set of rules. And those set of rules were like things like, in terms of how you create your own class, in terms of the kind of player you are, and understanding the spawn system. So that way you don't get flanked as badly and stuff like that. And then the choices you make in between in accordance with your play style, right? And how you create your classes accordance with your playstyle. And then again, you could also mix and match and do goofy stuff. But thanks to all these different things that we've been exposed to ever since the beginning or shortly after the beginning, that is part of the cause, right? And then of course the other part of the cause, which makes up for the whole thing, is basically just through the natural progression of time. I've mentioned time and time again on this channel that I believe that players are better now in general, right? In general, players are significantly better now in terms of your average player compared to what it used to be back in the day. So if your average player back in the day averaged a 0.75 KD, right now your average player is closer to a 1. Now, I know that some of you guys may not think that that is too much of a difference, but believe it or not, it is. Because for those of you guys that have been playing, like, let's say a Call of Duty, for instance, for a long period of time, you know, when you're going up against if the enemy team is full of players that are a 0.7 KD, and then all of a sudden now the enemy players are full of, you know, 1 KDs or 1.1 or 1.2, it's significantly different. You feel the difference. You could tell that the gun skill is a little bit better. You can tell that their movement is a little bit better, and their knowledge is a little bit better. So therefore, they are just a little bit harder to take down. Now you put in the fact that you're a solo player, and then all those other players are are on the other team, and you're having to carry the worst players because of, you know, the team balancing thing or whatnot. Again, those things give you an additional challenge, right? You're carrying everything on your back, and that's kind of what makes it everything kind of fun, so to speak, right? So, but anyway, at least for me personally, some people out there just want the easiest lobbies in the world, and they can't get enough of it. Other players want a balanced experience, and other players just don't give a damn, right? But in terms of their preference, in terms of what they want, right? So just an FYI, I'm more of the kind of balanced experience. You know, I just want an experience to where ping is king, and if it means I have to have the worst players on my team, whatever. You know, I just don't want my ping messed with, and let me just do what I do. And if I lose, I lose, and if I win, I win. Whatever, it doesn't matter. You know, like the culture right now has gotten so big and has evolved so fast that players out there, so many players, you know, they realize that you have to be the top 1%, you know, to basically even be a pro player or whatnot, right? Let alone have a chance. But the thing is, they're still playing as if it was a thing. And the reason is because of that influence. Because, like, for instance, even take a game like a sport like basketball, right? I mean, most of us that are probably listening to this video don't really have aspirations or never had any aspirations to become a professional basketball player. But that doesn't mean that we haven't been influenced in some way, shape, or form by a Michael Jordan, by a Kobe Bryant, by a Magic Johnson, by a LeBron James, by a Steph Curry, so to speak, right? To name 5 players, right? From all sorts of different generations. Despite the fact that we, you know, casually play, it doesn't mean that we haven't been influenced. We've imitated them so many times on the basketball court, right? We attempted fadeaway jumpers because we saw them do it, and we wanted to kind of maybe implement that into our game. But even if we didn't want to implement that into our game on a regular basis, just to be able to practice it and to imitate them and be like, oh, Kobe, 3, 2, 1, and you shoot a fadeaway jumper or whatnot. Again, this became very common with all casual players that had an interest in basketball, whether it was a minor interest or a major interest, right? And the same exact thing has happened to gaming now. Like when people see a Marka J, or, you know, well, he doesn't have a channel anymore, but you guys get it, right? Or whenever people would see a Scump or a Shotzi or, you know, their favorite streamer or stuff like that, right? Or even their favorite YouTuber, regardless of who it is. And if they're doing something in game that they want to implement into their own stuff, or use a class or something like that, I mean, they're going to do it, you know, and it doesn't matter if they're a casual or not. It's where their interest lies. And the thing is, when it comes to gaming is easily accessible. It's something that you can do at the comfort of your own home. You could do it solo, you could do it with friends, you could do it in all sorts of different ways that you want, right? And gaming obviously has grown over the last, you know, 10, 15 years, even longer, right? It's actually been something that has been growing quite rapidly ever since the mid to late 80s and early 90s. I kid you not, it has been growing, and it continues to grow. But when it comes to like this whole multiplayer shooter thing, and you know, it's not new anymore, right? It's no longer new anymore, and it's not as mysterious anymore, right? And it's not a big question mark. Now, there's the negative side to that, to where, you know, a lot of players are cheating, which is also another big problem and stuff like that. That is a huge issue. And as far as this game here that you're seeing, which is probably Halo Infinite, if I decide to post that, they've recently like reverted to an easy anti-cheat, whereas before they had a more sophisticated anti-cheat in their latest update. I don't know why in the hell they did that. It makes absolutely no sense, but whatever, right? But what I'm trying to say is that whether you look at it from the positive standpoint or the negative standpoint, there has been an evolution when it comes to gaming, and by just the natural progression of time and popularity of something, it's not as casual anymore, right? Now, and that's what I mean. Like, I'm not saying that you won't find any you know, the casual experience. Like, obviously X Defiant is trying to do that, obviously, by kind of going back in that aspect and just making the game, obviously, like, ping is king first and foremost, and then after that they balance teams, which a lot of players have problems with, but hey, we'll take it, right? It's better than the alternative that most multiplayer shooters have today, right? And through the natural progression of time, that's what happened. Now, in terms of like the whole EOMM thing or whatnot, the number one reason that was created was money, right? To get people to play longer and manipulate their experience, whether they're a casual player or a good player. They want to have control of your experience, so therefore it increases the chances of you buying something in the store if you're into that sort of thing. But even if you're not buying something from the store, it is made to have you play longer. Now, I know for a lot of you, including myself, it is counterproductive in that aspect because, well, if the game isn't rigged, right, I am likely to play longer. I totally get it. I understand. And I totally get and understand how it's easy to point your finger at something like EOMM, SBMM, and say that that is the death of casual multiplayer gaming, because it makes sense in a lot of ways. However, I am here to tell you that it is a catalyst, and it is something that has only amplified the effects and has made those effects come a lot faster. Like, it's accelerated. There we go. That's the word I'm looking for. It's accelerated the process of the decline of multiplayer shooters, right? Because that was implemented all in the sake of money, right? Because we all know at this point, and not just in Call of Duty and many other things, when greed is out of control, it ruins everything within time. It's only a matter of time before everything gets ruined when greed overtakes the foundation of what your creation was, right? So, and we're starting to see that with gaming, unfortunately, to where quality of games is going down. I mean, granted, sure, they're hard to make or whatnot, but at the same time, it's like, well, you know, when you have games out there that are old school, that are better than games that are, you know, of what they are today, you know, there's something to be said about that. Or when you have a few gems here and there that, you know, that do things right, despite the fact that they, you know, sell less copies or whatnot, or make less money, they're still better games or whatnot, right? So, you know, a lot of the AA, not AAA, but AA studios are doing very well at this point in terms of what they come out with. So, and I tip my hat to them. And quite frankly, that is proof right there. It's like, listen, it's greed. So another thing is, again, that's another catalyst, is greed, you know, which caused the EOMM / SBMM to become a thing, right? I mean, I don't even think Fortnite in the beginning had SBMM, and then they ended up, you know, having it in there. I don't know. But anyway, so as much as I would love to join the whole, you know, SBMM killed it, you know, party, so to speak. I'm looking a little bit more into depth, and my experience and what I've seen over the years and what I've experienced over the years leads me to believe, especially when looking at like the everything I mentioned here, leads me to believe that SBMM EOMM isn't the cause. It's actually a natural progression and popularity of things. So it's more likely that YouTube and everything else was the cause as well, but even those things were catalysts. It was very close to a cause. I would probably say it's actually part of the cause, but because the thing is, ultimately, people were already curious and wanting to get better. And then after YouTube and the pro scene and everything like that came out, everybody became influenced. A lot of players became influenced, and a lot more and more people are watching. I mean, think about how many people are trying to be content creators today. YouTube is the same size pie that it's always been, but right now it's considerably harder to become better. To become a more popular YouTuber nowadays, and more time consuming as well, simply because of the fact that there are more content creators out there than ever. I think I read somewhere that there was like a poll or some sort of vote that they had in terms of what kids wanted to be after, when, in terms of their future career. And they want to be either pro players or content creators / streamers. That was like the most popular vote. So that just goes to show you right there that there's been an evolution and a change in the culture, or should I say an evolution in the culture. And it's amplified because it's gaming, it's entertainment, and it's right now it's more easily accessible than ever, right? Right now, everybody's wearing a headset. Let's put it this way. Right now, a considerable amount of people are using headsets. Right now, a considerable amount of people are streaming and or YouTubing, so to speak, right? Especially when you consider it compared to back then, right? Like the other day, I saw a video by Optic Gaming to where Shotzi was 1v1ing fans, and every time they get a kill on him, they get $100 per kill. The last person to draw for the last match was an 8-year-old kid. But that wasn't what got my attention. I scrolled down the comment section just to see what people were writing, and one of the people in the comment section said, holy crap, that kid's playing Claw. And then I went up on the video and I looked. Guess what? The kid was playing Claw. 8 years old, playing Claw. So you understand what I'm saying? All this stuff wasn't nearly as common back then. Everything that I mentioned in this video, whether it's content creation, streaming, just gaming in general, the culture has changed and it has evolved. And that is it. It was the natural progression of things and people's interest peaking. And with everything like with YouTube and everything like that, it only amplified and it made it faster. It accelerated everything. And then on top of that, you add in the other things like EOMM and SBMM, that accelerated things even more, okay? In terms of the effects of casual multiplayer shooters dying, so to speak. So, and this is why myself and a few other people are praising XDefiant for trying to do what it's trying to do, because it's trying to keep, it's trying to give the player an organic experience as best as possible. Because right now, with a lot of shooters out there, a lot of multiplayer shooters, whether it's because they have a severe problem with cheating, or whether it's because of the algorithms that are put into the matchmaking or whatnot, it's not nearly as organic anymore, or should I say, it's not organic at all. You know what I'm saying? So this is why XDefiant is highly anticipated by people that can see this and understand this like I do, okay? Now, a lot of people will disagree with me, and they'll point their finger at something else as to why multiplayer shooters are dying, and they have every single right to their opinion. They can disagree all they want. That's fine. That's no problem. It's perfectly fine. It's one of the things that makes life interesting, right? When you have respectful disagreements and you have these discussions as to why or what you think. And quite frankly, if you think about it, whether people agree or disagree, I like to think that both sides, whichever side you're on, you have probably a legitimate reason as to why you can disagree. You can name an example as to why, right? Something that I haven't thought of before making this commentary, or something that I didn't mention in this commentary, or something like that. Absolutely. But with that being said, this is what I've seen, and this is the conclusion that I've drawn, and I wanted to put it in video form and in commentary form and just kind of share it with you. And I would really, really love to know down in the comment section in terms of where you stand on this. What are your opinions on this? What do you see? What have you experienced? And also another thing is, one other thing that's very interesting and that makes this kind of a debate is because of the generations. Like, I think every single generation obviously has a slightly different experience, but I personally think, and again, I could be wrong, But I personally think that when the current generation of gamers that are younger now, like let's say in their early 20s, when they get to around my age or whatnot, it's going to be very interesting to see on whether or not history actually repeats itself. I personally think it will, but at the same time, you never know, because a lot could happen in that time span and a lot can change during that time span. So it's going to be very interesting to see how things continue to evolve over time. But anyway, I'm gonna end it here, guys. Let me know down in the comment section what your opinions are and what you guys think. I'm really curious down below. And yeah, I'd like to thank everybody for taking the time to watch and or listen. And at the same time, I also hope you enjoyed it. And I'll catch you guys on the next one.